The Arno shoes Vishivanka boot in charcoal Kudu. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. I am Dale of Dale's Leatherworks. In today's video, I'm incredibly excited to be talking about my very own pair of Arno shoes. I did review this pair several months back. That time I believe it was in a turmeric Kudu leather, but it was also a Vishivanka boot. This time I'm reviewing my very own pair. So I met Mikhail and Christina O'Leary at last year's Stitch Down boot camp in New York City. They're going to be there again this year, I believe. I know Mikhail is, so I'm looking forward to see him again this year in Chicago. Yes, I will be there in Chicago this year. I'm flying in. I've made plans. We're going to make a trip out of it. This company has a really cool story. Real quick, I just want to talk about the build. In my opinion, these boots are true to size. I got these in a size 9. They do run a little narrow, as you can see by that last. That last is not going to be everybody's style. The sort of goal behind the design of this boot was to give it a very distinctive looking almond shaped toe, a little bit more pointy. To me, that's part of the charm. The most striking about these boots is, of course, the Ukrainian embroidered tab right here. And it's actually on both sides. The inside, the outside, interior, anterior side of the boot. Both boots, that is a Ukrainian embroidery, very specific to Ukraine culture. Yeah, so they're actually typically found on shirt collars and cuffs, and they're actually made by a friend of Mikhail's. Yeah, so Mikhail is Ukrainian. I'm a quarter Ukrainian. Yeah, the reason Mikhail incorporated this Ukrainian embroidery into the boot is just because he wanted the boots to stand out just a little bit. He wanted to make them just a little bit more distinctive compared to other boot brands. Since he has heritage from that region, he decided to incorporate a little bit of that into the boots, which I think is super cool. All right, so let's talk about the leather. So this is unmistakably Charles F. Stead Kudu leather in charcoal. At first I thought they were brown because there are brown notes to the charcoal. It's not exactly a concrete slate gray charcoal. It's definitely more of a earthy charcoal color, which is just beautiful. And yeah, you could see all the scars and scratches. There's really cool sort of waxy break throughout the upper. Doesn't really have much pull up. The toe is very well structured. One thing I quite like about the design on the quarter is this sort of slightly more aggressively curved quarter panel here. I really like that. There's really cool quadruple stitching on the high stress point here where the quarter meets the vamp. We've got 8 polished brass eyelets all the way up. We've got a veg tan midsole. We've got a triple veg tan stack leather in the heel, as well as a Vibram outsole. There's a really neat green suede on the inside of the boot to prevent heel strip. There's an Arno shoes veg tan insole in there. These are made in Mexico. In the last video covering this brand, I talked about how Mikhail does a lot of his own hand work. He creates his boots custom most of the time, but he actually has a factory in Mexico that he runs his standard builds from, and that sort of helps keep up with production and demand. So if you wanted to do a custom order specifically through Mikhail, you could do that. This is just according to what I understand. If you just order off the website, they will be made in Mexico to his standards, of course. Probably most striking to me about this build is this vegetable tanned finished edge along the eyelet facings and on the collar of the boot. It's so eye-popping and so beautiful. It runs down here. When I'm wearing these, I just look down and I just see that really bright veg tan, just contrasting against the aesthetic of the darker aesthetic of the boot, and it's just super eye-catching. The Vishivanka boot is sleek and elegant while maintaining rugged durability. The Vishivanka boot can be as unassuming or as loud as you want it. Roll up your pants to show the pop of color on the inlay, or keep it covered for a more formal look. Kudu leather is sourced from animals that roam the wild. Each hide carries its own distinct scrapes and striations. This means that every pair of boots is one of a kind, telling its own story. It's tanned at Charles F. Stead Tannery in the UK, and its characteristics are a soft and pliable feel, while still clocking in at a hefty 2.5mm thickness. This particular finish is retanned with waxes and oils, which gives it a waterproof element. The embroidery pattern is from the Hutsol people of eastern Ukraine, and it is unique because instead of a typical cross stitch, this pattern is created using a series of vertical stitches. For sizing, go true to size. If you're an 11D Brannick, you should take an 11D on this last. If you prefer a roomier fit or wear them with thicker boot socks, size up a half size. For wider fittings, go up a half size. Narrower fittings, go down a half size. Yeah, that seems to be good advice. I have a wider foot. On the other review, when I reviewed it was the Gaucho Kudu pair, not the Turmeric Kudu, but the Gaucho Kudu. Those run a 9.5 and just definitely too big for my foot. I'm a 9 Brannick. I have slightly wider feet, but I usually fit an 8.5D in most US boot brands just fine. These in a size 9 absolutely is the right size. If I had the same foot length as a 9 Brannick, but I had a lower volume foot, you definitely want to go down a half size. Go down to an 8.5, but for me, I have a very muscular foot, you might say. It's from all the Tren, HGH, and all the steroids that I'm on. Just kidding. I'm all natty. I'm a real natty, not a fake natty. There's a 6mm thick vegetable tanned insole. It's a hybrid Goodyear welt construction. The welt is stitched directly to the insole without the use of canvas gemming. I prefer gemming. I think gemming sounds better. I think gemming sounds kind of funny, but you could say it however you want. We've got a vegetable tan calf lining with colorful heel stripe, which is that green suede strip down the back. Natural veg tan midsole, Vibram 430 outsole, brass hardware. Occasional brushing for care. These boots have a pull-up effect and will lighten with wear. If you want to restore the rich original color, you can condition them with a very heavy conditioner, such as OK Oil. I, however, am of the mindset that for Kudus, for Ramblers, for other Stead leathers like that, you know, this has more of almost like a nubuck type feel to it. I let this stuff ride. I am not big on conditioning things except for like Chrome XL. I'll throw some Venetian on some Chrome XL. I'll throw some Venetian on some shell cordovan. That leather is meant to look oily, but for a nubuck, the second you start putting stuff on them, you're going to change the appearance. It's not going to patina the same way. In addition to that, the boots are going to be heavier. I've seen boots that are over conditioned and they're just super heavy because they're weighed down with all that added gunk. Like, in my opinion, I'm very minimalist when it comes to boots. Just kidding. I'm very minimalist when it comes to conditioning. I am not on the conditioning train. I trust what the tanneries did. There will eventually come a point years down the road when the leather is at risk of cracking. So you want to take that into consideration, but for the first 2, 3, 4 years of wearing something like this, my advice, especially something from Stead that has all these natural flesh characteristics going on, don't go rubbing them down with conditioners. That's just my recommendation. You want to enjoy the process. If you get them dirty, use some water, spot clean it, let it air dry. But as far as caring for leather boots, I find that seriously just a little bit of water here and there is really all you need. Brush them off, brush the debris off, sure, fine. Once you start applying conditioners, they're permanently changed. There's no going back, you know. So that's kind of why I advise against the whole conditioning. So about Arno. Handmade in the heart of Leon, Mexico, one of the world's global shoe capitals, Arno shoes are more than just footwear. They're a testament to timeless quality and exceptional design. Our boots are meticulously crafted to stand the test of time. Made from high-quality leather, they combine durability with comfort, making them versatile companions for any occasion. The sleek last and overall comfort ensure that these boots seamlessly transition from day to night, from the office to dinner, and from farm grounds to city sidewalks. We created Arno out of our shared passion for thoughtfully handcrafted footwear in a world full of fast fashion. Shoes are often made to look good on the shelf with the added bonus of a low price tag. The downside is those shoes disintegrate quickly, lasting a few years before the uppers start looking aged and the insoles come unglued. The materials most shoes are made of are derived from fossil fuels, which will either release carbon back into the atmosphere when burned or end up taking up space in a landfill for a few millennia. Arno embraces the idea of slow fashion. Shoes made with traditional manufacturing methods meant to be worn for decades and repaired when needed to extend their life. We use leather from the most respected tanneries in the world who conform to industry standards on sustainability. One of our favorite leathers to work with is Kudu. It's on the more sustainable end of the spectrum. The animal is not farmed, it lives in the wild and is hunted for its meat as well as its hide. We use vegetable tanning where we can, as the materials can break down long after your use, more readily and safely. And I covered more on Mikhail and Christine in the last video, but real short, Mikhail is a Coast Guard and Air Force veteran. He went to school for electrical engineering, but during his studies he stumbled into the world of handcrafted shoes through the Goodyear Welt subreddit. Ah yes, don't we all have such humble beginnings? And Christine moved to Florence on a whim and stumbled into the world of shoemaking, looking for a job in the Italian city, Firenze. She started working with Stefano Bemmer. She quickly learned how to make shoes and work on shoes. That's where she met Mikhail. And over barbecue one day, they created Arno shoes together. And the rest is history. And now they're running a shoe company together. Teik at Bootlosophy actually did an interview with them. So I will leave a link to that interview in the description below. It's very informative, a lot of good added detail. Another thing I want to mention is if you want to get really nerdy, on the Arno Shoes website they have a blog where they write blog posts showing how their boots age, showcasing the patina potential of Kudu, designing the Vishivanka boot. They talk about engineers, they talk about Cowboy boots in there. So I'll read a little bit off the Designing the Vishivanka boot blog. It's fascinating to reflect on how an idea takes shape. We recently launched a boot for the small made ready-to-wear line. It incorporates traditional Ukrainian embroidery called Vishivki. I guess that's where the word Vishivanka comes from. One thing that struck me was how traditional clothing styles have become homogenized and in many cases never disappeared. Folk clothing still thrives in certain Eastern cultures. In the West, it only makes an appearance at festivals or special occasions. Modern clothing can be stylish and fun, but we've lost a certain vibrancy and uniqueness that comes from our diverse cultural histories. The realization motivated me to create the Vishivanka boot as a way to weave a bit of that cultural heritage into contemporary context. As a Ukrainian who grew up in the United States, my cultural identity has always been complex. Primarily spoke Russian during my childhood. Well, Proshu Prashenya, which led me to identify more with Russian culture despite my Ukrainian roots. My grandmother is Russian, but the rest of my family is Ukrainian. One of my ancestors was a Zaporozhian Cossack, earning our family name Bliskavka, which means lightning in Ukrainian. Legend has it that he was as fast as lightning on horseback and with a saber. Don't we need men like that again? Growing up in the US, my connection with Russian culture wasn't problematic. I had friends with both Russian and Ukrainian backgrounds, and in my mind they were essentially the same. In 2022, when the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened, I was called up to Germany as an interpreter for a 6-month rotation. While there, I reconnected with my Ukrainian heritage. Part of it was that I was hanging around other interpreters at the time that were less Americanized than me, but because I had the opportunity to meet a lot of incredibly brave and selfless Ukrainian servicemen, connecting with them, hearing their stories and what they were going through inspired me to take learning Ukrainian a lot more seriously. Over the course of a year, I went from mostly understanding it, not being able to speak it, to being fully fluent. I wanted to commemorate this experience, and as a shoemaker, what better way to do that than to make a pair of boots in that theme. He originally envisioned cowboy boots, but one of his mother's friends does embroidery, so he asked her to make some in the traditional Ukrainian style. It took him a while, but eventually created a pair of boots incorporating those pieces for himself, and they looked stunning. At that point, he wanted to make a ready-to-wear boot in a similar style. And if he was going to use a Ukrainian design, he wanted to find someone in Ukraine to do it for him. He was connected with Dasha, godmother of his friend who lives in Ivano-Frankivsk region of Ukraine. She does embroidery for a living. She was originally unsure of using these embroideries in boots, but she has embroidered everything from shirts to wedding dresses, but shoes would be a first for her. So they tested out several designs and proceeded from there. Next, he had to select the right leather, in which case he landed on Kudu. And yeah, that turmeric Kudu really came out well. Wow. And so yeah, that's super cool background on these boots and the design of them. I love like every bit of that story. And on the topic of languages, I've studied Russian before myself, so я говорю много русский. I want to become fluent in it eventually. It'll probably be some years before I get to that point. While I'm on the subject, I do kind of want to throw it out there that I am planning on starting a new YouTube channel. It's going to be called The Biblical Linguist. I've spent the last year learning Koine Greek. I'm going to be taking the New Testament passage by passage and doing short little tutorials on how to translate that stuff. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments, but I will be announcing more on that here in the future. But I'm trying to get set up for that. That's gonna start taking more of my time. I am a language nerd. I actually love languages, and I decided to commit my life to just being a language student because it keeps the mind sharp, and the more words you have stored up there, I think you start to make a lot of connections, and you start to see sort of how history shaped cultures and shaped people. It's a deep intellectual exercise, I have to say, and it's just so much fun. It's hard, you know, kind of like working out. Like, you know, it's painful at times to sit down and memorize lists of words and try to, you know, it's comfortable staying in your comfort zone and just only listening and communicating in your own language, but there's something extra cool about learning another language and then forging connections through that. There's just, in my opinion, nothing more fulfilling. So I think it's super cool that Mikhail knows both Ukrainian and Russian. I'm envious. I want to learn Russian really bad, get to a conversational level, and then who knows, maybe after that Ukrainian. But I'm dealing with Greek right now. Eventually I want to do Hebrew and Aramaic, and endless options out there. It's a choose your sort of adventure kind of thing. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm super stoked with these new Vishivanka boots. I want to hear your comments about them in the comment section below, so let me know what you think. That'll do it for now. Thanks so much for watching, guys. End of transmission.